Hey everyone, welcome back to the Movie Buddy. I'm your host Josh Blumenkrantz, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. He worked previously on Avatar: The Way of Water, and now he's back for Avatar: Fire and Ash. Give it up for Grammy-winning composer Simon Franglen. Simon, how are you today?
I'm very well, Josh. It's great to be here.
Fantastic. Oh, it's such an honor to have you, sir. I've loved your music in these movies. I've seen this movie about three times now, and I always notice
Excellent.
something different with it every time I view it. So I wanted to open with this question. You've now shaped the sound of Pandora across The Way of Water and Fire and Ash. Looking back at that journey, what did working on The Way of Water teach you that most influenced you about how you approached Fire and Ash, and how did that change you as a composer in this process?
And remember, they're connected. I mean, they were basically an A and a B of the same story. So we started working in 2018 on both of them. And so there are bits of this score that I wrote in 2018 as well. But the last 2.5 years have been solidly on Fire and Ash. I think A Way of Water was a complex beast because we were also in the middle of COVID, and
Mm,
that made the actual process of actually recording and writing the score was much more difficult. I was locked down in New Zealand where I went to visit Jim for a while,
mhm.
and there were a whole load of things that made it a little tougher than I think we expected, just because of trying to get the score finished. Where everybody was initially we had all of the social distancing on the orchestra, which is obviously not ideal, and so on. And there was a load of things. So this one was a lot easier in that regard. The other thing is that Jim and I, a we now had a book of themes. Now the thing was that A1 had themes, but Jim felt that they didn't associate with specific people or areas or anything like that. And he asked of me in for A2 to give me like more themes that were specifically to Quaritch, to the Meccaina, to the family, to the RDA. And so we now had a language of those themes, but now I had new themes to write for the Wind Traders, for the Ash, for Varong, for Kiri, for Loak, and so on. And those were so there was but we had a starting place, and I think that made it a lot easier in terms of what to do. The one thing I would say is that Fire and Ash dwarfs Way of Water in terms of the complexity of the score.
Mm. Yes, I mean you have so many different new themes and like just for the different new characters that we have in this film. And you talk about working with Jim Cameron. I just wanted to know what kind of creative shorthand do you have with working with Jim in terms of shaping the score?
Oh, it's very, very much one on one. It's him and me in a room together. And nobody else's opinion matters. Nobody else even bothers giving an opinion because they know that it really makes no difference. It's down to how Jim feels. But the thing with Jim is that he allows me the freedom to make mistakes. And that's important because it means that I can try things out, maybe not get it right the first time, but he has something to react to. There are times when I get it actually, get it immediately, and he goes, "That the Ash theme, the sound of the Ash." I showed it to him, and he went, "That's it." Heard it like the first time, said, "That's the Ash. That's the Ash. I get it." And there are other times when it takes maybe two or three times, but
Mm.
this is now the fourth film that I've done with Jim. So, I think we've now got to a point where we have an understanding about what we want to do. And also, I'm lucky that he cares desperately about music, and he believes that music can do very special things. So I think that is something that for a composer is also great.
Oh, of course. I mean, I feel like your music kind of adds a layer of emotion to just each of these characters in this world that you both have created. I want to touch on James Horner for a second. You know, he's a legend. You worked with him on the first film. How do you balance honoring that legacy while still letting your own musical voice kind of come through?
I think the films tell you what to do. So A2, we wanted to carry DNA from A1 because irrespective of James's death, it would have been the same thing you would have done anyway. You would have done that because it's a series of films and you'd want to carry the things. So I knew that I was going to be carrying some of the DNA forward. And I think the way that I would approach it is that A2, on the other hand, suddenly had a family theme. It had a theme for the
Mm,
Metkayne. It had a theme for Payakan. It had a theme for the RDA. And there were all these new themes that Jim required, and it required new colors because we were now in the sea. We now had the ocean. We had all of those things. And so I would say that it is a child that carries the DNA, but the child always looks slightly different to the parent. And
mm.
now that we're with the grandchild carries the DNA of A2 and A1, but looks different to either of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's such an evolution to like where we've come from, like Avatar 1 to Fire and Ash. It's in like decades in the making, even it seems like.
Well, I mean, my son was 7 years old and he sang on A1.
Oh, no way.
And he's now 23. So, and he sang on A3. So, yeah, this is definitely there are generations involved here.
Mm. And then we talked about some new characters. Obviously, we have Varang, leader of the Ash people, and I love Una Chaplin in this role. I think she's amazing. She brings such an intense, like, new energy to the story. How did you approach creating a musical identity for her, and what emotions did you want her theme to evoke?
Una is, I mean, it's astonishing. I mean, I remember the first time I met her in 2018, we knew that there was something special. And I looked at her as being an enchantress. She's like a snake charmer. And so I gave her a theme that involved three voices that slightly weave in and out of each other. The theme spins around your head. If you're in the cinema, you've actually got these three voices going around your head gently.
Hmm.
And that was part of it. I wanted the sense of her that she's weaving a spell, and that was really the important thing for her sound and the thing. And I put a couple of the theme is based around that sense of that.
It's truly like astonishing. And like speaking of the Ash people, we have some chanting, and one of the most striking sounds are that chanting connected to the Ash people. What was that creative process like? Did you have that chanting before the score? Because I know it influenced the score. Is that right?
Yeah, no, the chanting I have, the thing is, I always do the chants in Navi. So they're always done in the language. And we had a couple of chants. We had one which is the one in the fire ceremony, which is actually fire, fire, burn in Navi. And then there's one as you enter the ash camp. And
Hmm.
that one, I looked at there's a Balinese tribe called, or Indonesian tribe called the Kecek. And there's a
Hmm.
thing called the Kecek monkey chant.
Oh,
And I
wow.
looked at that and I thought, oh, that's an interesting texture. And then I made my own version for the ash. And that's where that comes from.
God, that it's just such a interesting group of people, crazy dynamics.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was also something that I took back from my youth. I was a pretend punk when I was little.
Yeah.
And the thing about punk was it was a group of a society that felt that the world had abandoned them and they were turning their back on that society. And they wanted to tear it down. And the ash has the same energy. It has the energy of feeling like the planet has turned its back on them, so they're going to tear the planet down.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like they are sort of, I guess you could say the villains of the story, but I can kind of see where they are coming from in that aspect of it for sure. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
they're very much they feel like they've been abandoned, so they might as well just go and tear the world down and start again.
for sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Jake Sully and his family. They've been the emotional core of these films. How's their musical theme evolved from like Way of Water into Fire and Ash? And does their music say about them as a family, I guess, as a whole?
Well, I wrote two themes that Zoe Saldana sang on A2, and we used it in A3 as well. We had the song called.
Hmm. Yes.
And that was the idea that she was singing the life of her children. And I did that. But there was another theme that I wrote in 2018, which initially we called it the family circle. It then became called the future and the past. And this was Zoe singing a memorial song, a song for a funeral song. And
Mm.
we had it in Avatar 3 for a while. It just, in the end, Jim cut it out because couldn't be there for time. And And that became the main theme of Avatar 3, is what I call the future and the past. And you will hear it throughout the score. You will hear it whenever there's this point of the between life and death. I mean, for instance, there's a scene which we call the sacrifice scene with Jake and Spider.
Yes. Oh,
And
so good.
that is using that theme. It is using the memor the future and the past. When you hear Loak and the Thames talking at the beginning of the film after they've been flying together, that is using that theme again. And when there's a point when the Thames says, so, bro, how did I die? And then that theme comes out there, and it's about that point where between it's the life and death is that intersection. So that became a main theme for Avatar 3, and that was based on another vocal that Zoe sang, and I left it in the album as the last track on the album. It's
Mm.
not in the film, but I wanted people to have to know where we came from and where that theme came from.
No, I've listened to it. It's really good. I mean, Zoe
Yeah.
is just as a singer in general is just like amazing. She needs to give
Those are
herself
all
more
single.
credit.
Those are single takes live on set.
Really? No way.
Those
Wow.
that's not a compiled vocal for in set in a recording studio perfectly. That's using a boom mic and she's recording it live as on set. It's an astonishing thing.
Oh, she's amazing. I want to talk to you about just the score in general. From what I've heard, you've ended up with about, let me get this right, 1900 pages of sheet music. And then you
Yeah.
composed this score in Los Angeles, which is amazing. Was this more music than The Way of Water?
Oh, considerably. Where this actual score. Yeah, we're way up on that way of water, just so much more, and it basically is like a weighs about the same as a bag of concrete. So I
Wow.
think that now is going to be my method of measuring the my scores by weight. I think, and then and then I'll know if how many bags of concrete did I need to use for this one. And there's a heck of a lot of music, it really is.
No, I mean it's all integral just to the overall story. Was there like a big challenge in like getting the right cue in Fire and Ash that like took a bit of experimenting before it finally like clicked?
Yes, I mean there's always ones, and often those challenges are things I don't show Jim. Often they're challenges that I have for myself. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I keep doing it, and then I don't show it till I'm happy. But I mean, for instance, the I think the miracle, which is where
Mm,
Spider and Kiri, when Kiri revives Spider, that to get that absolutely nailed. Took a while, and part of the problem was that in the initial version was over 6 minutes long. Where we've ended up is 2 minutes, and you had to get when you had 6 minutes, it sounded that there was this build that took time, and
hmm
therefore you had more of opportunity to do things musically and to evolve the chant. When you have 2 minutes till the thing, then you suddenly have to race. Everything suddenly has to get compressed. It took a while to get it to nail. When I played it to Jim and I said this, he went, "Oh yeah, that's great," but it was a challenge getting there.
I mean, I'm sure it was. I mean, that was an amazing sequence, like because you're just like wondering, like, is Spider gonna make it? Like, it's just like you're kind of like on the
Yeah,
edge of your seat, like wondering. And then
yeah.
of course, the music. Besides the score, you also worked on the song. You worked on a song with Miley Cyrus, "Dream Is One." What was it like collaborating with her?
This was a case where Jim had asked me, "Hey, do you think Miley would be interested in writing, doing the song for the end of the film?" He had met her at a Disney Legends event. They'd
Hmm
both been inaugurated as Disney Legends, and
Yes.
he said to her, maybe one day we should work together. And so he said, do you think she'd be interested? So I knew Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt. They were friends. So I phoned up Andrew and said, do you think Miley would be interested? They'd worked with her. And 10 minutes later, I get a text back saying, yes, she's in. And so they came, saw the film. I had a title already, which was We Dream as One at that point, because I
Mm,
thought it was about connection. If you look at the beginning and the end of the film, they're both about connection. There's Loak and Natem at the beginning. There's Spider me in going into the spirit world at the end. It's all about connection. And I thought that We Dream as One seemed to be a an appropriate title for this. And then I gave them some ideas and some themes. I had to go to New Zealand because I continued working with Jim on the score, and the three of them started working, and then they would send me stuff, and so
Mhm.
I would then give them feedback and then also add stuff, add some strings, add some voices, and so on, and we ended up with where we are, and I'm incredibly pleased with it.
Oh no, it's such a beautiful song. I think it's such a good bookend to the movie because we start off, like you said, with the dreams, like in the beginning, and then where we land up in the end, just no spoiling it, but like it was just, it's beautiful. Like it really
Yeah,
resonates in a
yeah,
very
I'm very
emotional
I'm
way.
very pleased with it indeed.
Just two more questions and I'll let you go.
Oh,
When people leave the theater after Fire and Ash, what do you hope they are feeling because of the music?
I think the music takes them on the journey. Hopefully, we are processing grief and we go into some very dark places in this film.
Mhm.
As we talked about with Jake and Spider and some of the other parts with the Ash, with Quaritch and Varong, they basically want to destroy everything. We discover what might happen with Spider if the RDA captures him and keeps him and so on. There's a lot to process, and Scoresby and that possible massacre of the Tulkun. It's a heavy film, but
Yeah,
at the end, and we even have, the final fight, and we have Quaritch jumping off the edge into the abyss, and then the last cue is called "The Light Always Returns,"
mm,
and I hope the music tells you that the light always returns and that there is hope, and that if we make four and five, hopefully we've wrapped up two and three in a nice bow because two and three are a pair together.
for sure.
Four and five, throw that rule book out the window and just where four goes will blow your mind.
Oh, I need Vorn 5 desperately. And it's like you said, like you kind of feel that emotional weight to it. Like, there's a sense of loss, but also I think there's a sense of rebirth in a way, and like a sense of hope, like you said.
I think it is also at the point that we've gone. Jake and Neytiri have gone through this journey. They have gone from this point when they're disconnected from each other and from the world. They are just, there's Jake doing one thing, Neytiri doing another. They hardly talk, and I think hopefully we come back and we realize that they they have joined together and again at the end.
Love it. And then for my last question, a little fun one. If you were flying on an Ikron across Pandora, you can only listen to one track from your Avatar scores. What would you pick?
If I'm flying on Pandora, at this point I'd take Brothers. I think Brothers is the flying from.
Same for me. It's literally one of my favorite tracks on this whole
Yeah,
score. Yeah. Oh,
absolutely.
beautiful.
Anyway, well, thank you very much, Josh. It's been a great pleasure.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Simon. Thanks so much for coming to join me today.